Welcome back to another video recap. And this one is an interesting one. It's called Chapter 8, Draco Amythios. And Draco Amythios turns out to be a very important character for the rest of the campaign. We basically introduce a new player. A friend of ours who was part of another campaign that unfortunately ended way too soon after 3 chapters, and he asked if he could join our campaign, and he's more than welcome to. So starting from chapter 8, he joined as Draco Amythios, a purple dragonborn. Very interesting. And we nicely made his backstory combine with the Dragon of Icespire Peak, and he joins the group to go and find Krakma Castle. And there are some surprises ahead for the group, which is a surprise that I immediately planned after they left Krakma Hideout. So it was after chapter 1, where they have been at Krakma Hideout, I immediately set up this plan where Ymik, the leader of the Krakma Hideout, the new leader of the Krakma Hideout, had an agreement with Cepheon, and after chapter 1 I immediately made sure that in my planning Ymik would be killed for treason of making an agreement with the enemy. That's something that should not happen in the world of goblins. You should not disrespect the king by making an agreement with the enemy. And therefore he was executed in a very brutal way and put out in front of the hideout as a warning, especially for the group. And then 7 chapters later, in chapter 8, they return and they find this, including some reinforcements. But how everything further goes, I'll leave it up for my 2 good friends, Ashley and Isaac. Take it away.
Welcome to the deep dive. You sent us a fascinating collection of material this time. It looks like you've been following a group of adventurers through some pretty wild situations.
Yeah, definitely.
Our mission today is to unpack their recent journey and really get to the heart of what's important here.
Exactly. We're diving into a transcript from a YouTube video titled Chapter 08, Draco Amythios on the Dan & Dragons channel. It's a detailed snapshot of a recent role-playing game session, and it's packed with interesting developments.
Okay, so the scene opens in the familiar town of Phandalin. Our adventurers are returning after a few successful outings. We hear they dealt with some gnomes, which sounds like it might have been more trouble than it was worth, maybe?
Could be.
And they rescued someone named Adabra from Umbrage Hill. They also, it seems, gave a heads up to some Gorf miners about a potential problem. So a busy few days for them?
Oh, yeah. They're arriving back in Phandalin quite early in the morning after several days of travel, and one of the group, Deimus, is feeling the strain of that journey, like exhaustion.
Oof, yeah.
They're immediately faced with a decision. Head straight for the comfort of the Stonehill Inn and some much-needed rest, or report their recent successes to the townmaster right away.
And they chose.
They wisely choose the inn.
Rest definitely sounds like a priority. And at the Stonehill Inn, they meet the innkeepers, Toblin and Trelina Stonehill. It seems their reputation precedes them, as Toblin mentions they've been the talk of the town.
Mm-hmm. You can imagine, given the kinds of things adventurers get up to.
Right. Then things take a slightly more unusual turn. Toblin mentions a package for one of the adventurers, Cepheon. Get this, it's a collection of monster heads, including one from a manticore.
Wow.
Let's unpack this for a second. What does it tell you that Cepheon is not only hunting these creatures, but also keeping their heads as trophies?
Well, it certainly paints a picture of a dedicated, perhaps even boastful adventurer. This act of collecting monster heads suggests a desire to commemorate victories and perhaps even project an image of power and competence within the community. But this news is quickly followed by something less celebratory. Toblin informs Cepheon that taxes in Phandalin have increased. Apparently, the new townmaster has implemented these to fund new security measures following a memorial for someone named Inaverna.
Oh, right.
Notice how even in this fantasy setting, a reaction to a tragedy can be increased taxation. It highlights a common theme in governance, even if the specifics differ.
Yeah, that tracks.
It makes you wonder how the citizens of Phandalin will react to this new financial burden, and if it might create new tensions.
Exactly. A death in town leads to higher costs for everyone. It sounds like even in a world of magic and monsters, some things remain universally, well, taxing.
Yeah.
And it directly affects Cepheon, as the cost of his larger room at the inn has also gone up.
Precisely. Toblin initially quotes a substantial increase, but Cepheon proves to be a shrewd negotiator. He manages to haggle the price down by offering a gold piece and what he calls a pay hat for an extended stay.
A pay hat? What on earth is a pay hat?
Yeah, a pay hat. For those of you wondering, it seems to be some form of collateral or perhaps an advance payment for future services rendered by the adventurers. It's an interesting glimpse into the local economy. Cepheon clearly values his comfort.
And maybe the extra space he needs for his collection.
Exact.
A pay hat? You never know what kind of currency adventurers might come up with. Following this negotiation, Cepheon generously buys breakfast for everyone at the inn, a good way to build camaraderie, or perhaps to subtly display the rewards of his recent hunts.
It could certainly be a bit of both. And it's during this breakfast that a truly interesting character enters the scene. A dragon-like individual named Draco Amythios approaches them.
A dragon-like individual. Okay, here's where the story really takes a turn. Draco inquires about a dragon that attacked the town. Given his appearance, I can only imagine the initial surprise, maybe even apprehension, from the adventurers.
Understandably so. They recount their encounter with a white dragon. And Draco reveals something crucial. He's a dragonborn, a humanoid creature with draconic ancestry.
Ah, okay. Dragonborn.
He's also interested in this dragon, but he makes a key distinction. Not all dragons are malevolent. This is a crucial piece of lore, you know? It suggests that the adventurers shouldn't automatically assume all dragons are hostile, which could open up interesting alliances or betrayals down the line.
Right. It challenges the typical fantasy trope of dragons as solely destructive forces.
Exactly.
Good and bad dragons. It's a classic concept, but coming from a dragonborn, it definitely adds a layer of complexity. Draco then expresses his desire to hunt this white dragon and asks if the adventurers would be willing to join him.
Which leads to the adventurers giving Draco a quick summary of their recent adventures. They mention their skirmishes with goblins and the Red Brands, their encounter with the Manticore, clearly a highlight, given the trophy.
Right.
Yeah, and their main objective, rescuing someone from a goblin castle. They've certainly been keeping busy.
And then they reveal a rather significant piece of information, a mine called the Spellforge, that supposedly contains powerful weapons.
Ooh.
The map to this mine, they explain, is located in Cragmaw Castle. The Spellforge, being a source of powerful weapons, immediately raises questions. What kind of power are we talking about? Weapons that could shift the balance of power in the region.
That sounds big.
This detail adds a significant potential reward to their current quest.
It directly links their present goal with a potentially game-changing future reward. And to get to Cragmaw Castle, they reveal their plan to seek the assistance of the Goblin Chieftain based on a past interaction.
So they're aiming to negotiate with goblins.
Apparently. To find a map leading to powerful weapons, all while this Dragonborn, who has his own agenda regarding a white dragon, is listening intently. It's a complex web of intertwined goals.
Definitely sounds like the kind of situation where things could get very interesting very quickly. Draco then takes the initiative and starts gathering more information. He questions Toblin about the dragon attack, specifically which way it went.
Which was
South, towards the Sword Mountains, and if there have been any rumors of orc activity. It shows his proactive nature in trying to understand the bigger picture.
It's a smart move. He's clearly trying to piece together the broader context of the threats facing this region. And Toblin provides some crucial details. He confirms an increase in orc activity since the dragon attack and mentions the new townmaster, Helia Thornton, who, interestingly, was a former miner.
A miner running the town? Interesting background.
Yeah, and we also learn more about the recent leadership changes in Phandalin. The previous townmaster, Harbin Wester, was killed by a mage before the dragon even arrived.
Whoa, really?
And tragically, a woodworker named Inaverna was eaten by the dragon. It paints a picture of a town that's been hit hard by multiple events and is undergoing significant changes.
Phandalin sounds like it's really been through the ringer. Draco also expresses his concern about the increased taxes and even offers to speak with Helia himself. He seems to have a strong sense of fairness, or at least a strong opinion about excessive taxation.
Perhaps a bit of both. And in a rather specific detail, Draco orders honey meat.
Honey meat. Okay.
It's a small detail, but these little character moments can sometimes be quite telling. Meanwhile, the adventurers secure rooms for the night. Cepheon, naturally, takes the largest room,
Of course.
which promptly becomes the temporary resting place for the Manticore head. You have to admire his dedication to bringing his trophies along.
You've got to wonder what the cleaning staff at the Stonehill Inn think of all this. Draco continues his inquiries, asking Toblin about a change in the town guard and about a woman elf named Sister Garael who maintains a shrine in town.
Gathering intel.
He's clearly gathering information on multiple fronts, trying to understand the current dynamics within Phandalin beyond just the immediate threats.
He is. He's trying to understand the social and political landscape, not just the monster threats. The mention of new guards from Neverwinter and Sister Garael, an elf cleric, adds more layers to the town's social structure and potential sources of aid or conflict.
Okay, fast forward to the next day, or rather the afternoon. It sounds like the adventurers enjoyed a good rest.
Much needed of it.
Cepheon has a specific task in mind. He heads to the blacksmith to get powdered silver for a ritual to create holy water.
Ah, holy water. Okay.
This detail about Cepheon needing holy water suggests he might be a paladin or a cleric, someone with a connection to the divine, adding another dimension to his character.
It does. At the blacksmith, he interacts with a halfling blacksmith and his son, Quinn. It's a somewhat humorous encounter involving a trade for a golden frog statue. You never know what treasures an adventurer might have on hand. And a slightly painful mishap involving young Quinn.
Ouch.
The halfling blacksmith seems a little bewildered by Cepheon's request and his particular charm. Cepheon eventually gets his powdered silver and returns to the inn to rejoin Azareah, Deimus, and Draco. They then discuss their plan to visit Helia Thornton, the new town master, to gather more official information.
And before they head out, Cepheon performs his ritual to create holy water, a process that Toblin watches with a noticeable degree of suspicion.
I can imagine. Given all the recent strange events in Phandalin, a dragon attack, a new town master, increased taxes, Toblin's apprehension is certainly understandable.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Now comes the meeting with Helia Thornton. They find her with new guards, these ones from Neverwinter, indicating a shift in the town's security forces.
Right. New management, new guards.
Helia acknowledges their previous actions in warning the dwarf miners and rescuing Adab or Gwyn, rewarding them with 75 gold pieces. Her reaction to Draco's dragonborn nature is interesting. She seems quite accepting.
Oh, really?
Which suggests a level of tolerance or perhaps prior experience with non-human individuals in this region.
That's definitely a positive reaction for Draco. Helia then turns to the issue of increased orc activity, mentioning attacks on Butterskull Ranch, located east of Conyberry. She offers them a quest, either help the ranch owner, Alon Khazar, or confirm his death, with a reward of 100 gold pieces.
Okay, another hook.
The mention of increased orc activity, coupled with the Reaver Toll mentioned earlier, paints a picture of a region facing growing threats beyond just the dragon. It makes you wonder if these are isolated incidents or signs of a larger conflict brewing in the Sword Mountains.
It immediately presents them with another potential adventure and highlights the dangers prevalent in the area. She also mentions the ongoing problem of the Reaver Toll, further emphasizing the lawlessness and risks associated with travel outside Phandalin.
It sounds like there's no shortage of opportunities for these adventurers to get into trouble or to help those in need. Helia then offers yet another quest, escorting someone named Don John Raskin to the Mountain Toe Gold Mine, northeast of Phandalin, also for a 100 gold reward.
Wow.
So within a single meeting, they suddenly have multiple potential new directions for their adventures. Notice how quickly the adventurers go from having a primary goal to facing multiple compelling side quests.
Yeah, that's classic adventuring life, right?
This is a common challenge for adventurers deciding where to focus their efforts and what the priorities should be. Each of these quests likely comes with its own risks and rewards.
Indeed. The adventurers then inquire about the usefulness of the gnomes they previously encountered. Helia, however, seems quite unimpressed, particularly with the hat of wizardry.
Huh? Not a fan.
Apparently not. She also expresses skepticism about a crossbow on wheels being built by the gnomes as a defense against the dragon.
A crossbow on wheels. You have to admit, it sounds a little optimistic against a full-grown dragon. Helia's skepticism, coming from someone with a mining background and likely a more practical outlook, is quite understandable.
Yeah, I can see that. Cepheon arrives during this discussion, catching the tail end of these quest offerings.
With all this new information and these potential new leads, the adventurers then need to discuss their next steps. They still have their original goal, Cragmaw Castle, and the map to the Spellforge, but now they also have these new quests from Helia and the unresolved matter of helping Innaverna recover her goods, which was mentioned earlier in passing.
It's a lot to consider. It's a classic adventurer dilemma. Stick to the plan or pursue these new opportunities.
What do they decide?
They decide to prioritize resting for the remainder of the day and then heading out for Cragmaw Hideout in the morning to seek the Goblin Chieftain's help, sticking with their original plan for now.
Okay, sticking to the main quest.
Cepheon, ever the prepared one, creates good berries for the journey. These magical berries provide both nourishment and a bit of healing, which can be invaluable on the road.
Oh yeah, good berries are always useful. They certainly can be lifesavers. They then have dinner and drinks at the inn, making their final preparations for an early departure.
Morning arrives, and the group sets off towards Cragmaw Hideout. We get a somewhat amusing detail about Cephon's wolf companion, Gwot, showing unusual friendliness after being given pieces of snake.
Huh, snake.
Apparently, even fearsome wolves have their culinary weaknesses.
It seems so. Then, in a moment of questionable judgment, Cepheon and Deimus decide to try and wake Draco with buckets of water.
Oh no, that sounds like a terrible idea, especially with a dragonborn.
A rather risky move, to say the least, when dealing with someone who has draconic ancestry and presumably a breath weapon.
Unsurprisingly, this doesn't go according to plan. Draco reacts explosively, unleashing his breath weapon and causing damage to the room.
Yikes.
They quickly make their exit from the inn, and Cepheon, likely feeling a bit sheepish, arranges for the damaged room to be repaired. One can only imagine what Toblin will have to say about that on their next visit.
It's a safe bet that Cephon's pay hat might be put to use sooner rather than later. They then make their way to the Tribor Trail and locate the path leading to Cragmaw Hideout. Given their previous encounters in this area, they wisely proceed with caution.
And their caution proves to be well-founded. Draco's Drake pet, Drax, triggers a snare trap.
See? It seems the approaches to Cragmaw Hideout remain as dangerous as ever.
They manage to successfully navigate past a pit trap, thankfully, and follow a nearby river to the cave entrance of the hideout. But their hopes for a peaceful negotiation with the Goblin Chieftain are immediately shattered.
Oh, what happened?
Outside the cave, they discover the gruesome sight of the impaled body of a goblin leader, guarded by 2 wolves.
Whoa. Okay, so much for talking to the chief. It's a clear sign that there's been a significant power struggle within the goblin tribe.
Indeed. Before they can fully assess this grim scene, a goblin is spotted fleeing into the caves. Deimus reacts swiftly, casting a spell called Hold Person,
Right.
which magically paralyzes the goblin, rendering it helpless.
Talk about a quick and effective response. But Cephon's follow-up action is decisive, to say the least.
What does he do?
He impales the paralyzed goblin with his lance.
What? Not exactly the most diplomatic way to start a negotiation.
It's a brutal move, and it certainly doesn't bode well for any peaceful parley. Almost immediately, another goblin emerges from the cave and is met with a coordinated attack from Draco, Azareah, and Deimus, who finishes it off with a blast of magical energy, an Eldritch Blast.
Eldritch Blast. So Deimus is a warlock, maybe?
Seems likely. This spell emphasizes Deimus's magical prowess.
So a swift and violent reintroduction to Cragmaw Hideout. And the commotion attracts even more attention. 2 more goblins and a larger, more formidable creature, an ogre, emerge from the cave.
An ogre. Okay, things just got serious. The situation is rapidly escalating.
Deimus attempts to thin out the smaller threats by casting Shatter, a powerful area of effect spell.
Does it work?
You see how it immediately takes down the 2 weaker goblins, highlighting Deimus's magical abilities? However, the ogre, being much tougher, is only slightly injured by the blast.
Uh-oh.
Clearly, they're facing a much more significant threat now.
The ogre shrugs off the magical attack, and Draco and Drax try a combined assault, launching a flaming arrow. It hits, but doesn't seem to deter the ogre significantly.
Ouch. The ogre retaliates, swinging its massive great club and striking Cepheon, dealing a significant amount of damage.
Despite the pain, Cepheon manages to cast a powerful necrotic spell called Inflict Wounds on the ogre, which clearly causes it considerable harm.
Good hit.
Azareah then follows up with a blast of poison spray, further weakening the already injured ogre.
A well-coordinated magical assault. And Deimus finishes the job with another Eldritch Blast, finally bringing down the ogre.
Yeah, it sounds like a hard-fought and costly victory.
In the aftermath of the battle, the adventurers loot their fallen foes. In a somewhat peculiar move, Cepheon claims the ogre's leather pants.
The ogre's pants. Okay, that's something. You never know what use an adventurer might find for such an item.
I guess not. Azareah then uses a magical ring to cast Speak with Animals, allowing her to communicate with Gwot and the two wolves guarding the impaled goblin.
Ah, smart.
Yeah.
This ability to communicate with animals can often provide valuable insights.
The ogre's pants definitely a memorable souvenir, but more importantly, the communication with the animals yields some interesting information. Gwot indicates a faint trail leading north, away from the cave, and the wolves corroborate this, confirming that more dangerous goblin-like creatures have come from that direction. This suggests that the internal conflict among the goblins is tied to a larger external threat moving into the area.
It implies that the power vacuum created by the death of the goblin leader is being filled by something potentially even more dangerous. They decide to follow Gwot's lead, heading towards a dark and ominous-looking forest.
Just as they're preparing to take a moment to rest at the edge of this foreboding forest, the story takes a truly unexpected and dramatic turn. A beautiful woman appears, clearly someone of significant power, and she speaks to Azareah in Elvish.
Whoa, wait. Out of nowhere. This is a major development, pulling the narrative in a completely new direction.
Indeed. The woman mentions Cepheon and Deimus, a famous archmage demonologist, and extends an invitation to Azareah to visit her domain of delight in the Feywild.
The Feywild.
A parallel plane of existence often associated with powerful magical beings and unpredictable rules. Her realm is called Prismere, and she states that she requires information from Azareah's book.
Azareah's book. What's in the book? Azareah's sudden departure into this realm signifies a major shift in the story's direction and potentially much higher stakes.
The Feywild. This is a whole other realm of existence filled with magic and mystery. This woman clearly holds significant power. She insists that Azareah come with her, stating that her companions cannot enter the portal.
Wow, just like that.
Faced with this extraordinary invitation and perhaps sensing a destiny or an irresistible opportunity, Azareah agrees. She steps through the portal with Gwot, disappearing into the Feywild.
No way. She just left. It's a sudden and significant loss for the group.
Wow. Just like that, one of their companions, their cleric no less, has vanished into another dimension. The remaining adventurers are now left to continue their quest towards Cragmaw Castle without her support.
We have indeed covered a vast amount of ground in this deep dive. We followed the adventurers from their return to Phandalin, through encounters with a helpful but wary innkeeper, a curious and potentially helpful dragonborn, and a pragmatic townmaster, leading to a perilous battle outside a goblin hideout that culminated in Azareah's mysterious and sudden departure into the Feywild.
It was certainly an eventful series of events. Consider the implications of those increased taxes and the new security measures in Phandalin. What does Helia's leadership mean for the town's stability and future? And what about Draco's intense interest in the White Dragon? Will he turn out to be a valuable ally or an unpredictable wild card?
And Azareah's unexpected invitation to the Feywild opens up a whole new realm of possibilities and questions. What secrets are contained within her book that are so valuable to this powerful being? What wonders and dangers await her in Prismere? And how will the remaining adventurers fare without their cleric as they continue their pursuit of Cragmaw Castle and the secrets of the Spellforge?
What stood out to you most in this deep dive, listener? Are you as intrigued as we are by the potential of the Spellforge, the looming threat of the White Dragon, or the mysteries surrounding Azareah's journey into the Feywild? And let's not forget Helia's rather unconventional machine crossbow on wheels. What outlandish contraption do you envision that actually being? We'd love to hear your thoughts and theories.
Yeah, definitely. This deep dive really underscores the unpredictable nature of adventure. Even when a clear path seems set, unexpected encounters and urgent calls can emerge, dramatically altering the course of the journey. And with Azareah's sudden absence, what crucial knowledge or support might the remaining adventurers now find themselves without? It's definitely something significant to consider as their story continues.